What's up, guys? This is Ty, and in this series of videos I'm going to talk about how to understand Bitcoin for the non-technical people. Now, just to give you guys a little bit of background on myself so that you guys understand where I'm coming from and how these videos are going to be structured, okay? I'm not exactly sure how many videos there will be, but I'm going to keep making it until I can help all my friends and family members understand what is Bitcoin, okay? So in this, just so you guys know, right, many of you guys know that I'm a college dropout, don't have a very big background in computer science or mathematics, right? So I learned about Bitcoin at the beginning of 2013, and I watched it as it went into the crash. The first $265 crash went up to $265, and then it crashed back down. And then I started getting some money together to start investing into Bitcoins, okay? So in this video series, I want to help you guys understand what I went through and what I learned about Bitcoin. And since I'm not a very computer savvy or a very mathematically savvy person, okay, I'm not one of those Asians that was gifted in math and science, so I'm going to make this as dummy proof as I can, you know, so that people that are non-technical like myself can understand it, okay? Now, before you can understand what is Bitcoin and why it is so revolutionary, and in my opinion, I think it's going to be even a bigger invention and bigger revolution than the World Wide Web, okay? Now, you might disagree with me on this, or you might find it a shocking surprise for me to say this, but I can honestly say that there's not too many things that I've seen in the technology world or anywhere that has revolutionized the vast majority of the people on this planet, okay, as much as the invention of the Bitcoin protocol, okay, or the Bitcoin network or the Bitcoin system, however you want to call it, okay? Now, I just want to give you guys a disclaimer real quick, right, is that I would try as best as I can to avoid any kind of technical stuff here in this explanation about Bitcoin. And if you want a really detailed and very accurate explanation and technical information about Bitcoin, I recommend that you get on YouTube and search for Khan Academy. That's spelled K-H-A-N Academy, and add Bitcoin right behind it, the word Bitcoin. And I think that that's one of the best guys that explains what the technical and the mathematical science behind Bitcoin is. Okay, so in this video, I'm not going to talk any math or science that he talks about. The most math that I'm going to talk about in this video series is just basic arithmetic, because that's all I know. All right. So before we get started with Bitcoin here, guys, right, it's very important that you understand how our current banking system works. Okay. And how money is being transferred between one person to another, and you will realize how revolutionary Bitcoin is as a currency, as a system of payment, and as the protocol itself. In this specific video, in the initial videos that I make here, it's only going to talk about Bitcoin as a money or a currency and a payment system or a transfer system. In the future videos, I'm going to talk about how Bitcoin is used for other things other than just currency, okay? So in this focus, now before we talk about money here, I have a few boxes up here to represent. One box over here represents Bank of America. If you're not in the financial world, it's commonly known as BOFA, which stands for Bank of America. And over here is HSBC, right? It's some kind of, whatever it stands for, it's not important. It's just a couple of international banks that I use here so that you guys can have an idea, because I didn't want to just use American banks only where I currently live in the state of Texas, because then some of you people that are watching this from the international countries, right, in other countries outside the U.S., you may not recognize them. But I'm pretty sure that almost everybody has heard of Bank of America or HSBC Bank, all right? Now, before you understand about Bitcoin, like I said, it's important that you understand how money is being transferred or goes from one person to another. I'm going to use Bank of America as an example, and I want you to participate in this illustration or this example with me so that it can help you understand. I want you to imagine that you are over here and you have your money at Bank of America, okay? And this is me over here, right? I'm just going to put my name here so that you can see that, right? So let's just say that if you wanted to send me $1, okay, whether it's $1, 1 yen, 1 euro, 1 yuan, it doesn't matter what currency that you're using, okay? let's say that if you were to send me this, okay, the way that it works is that inside Bank of America, they would have a ledger, okay? We're going to talk a lot about a ledger in this video because it's one of the key components of Bitcoin, okay? And it's one of the key inventions that's never been invented before. Now, in the past, what happened was most banks would use a ledger, and in this ledger, there would be accounts, okay? A ledger is nothing but a notebook that records how much money each person has inside that bank, okay? So you would have a ledger. On the ledger, it would show that you have $100, $1,000, $1 million, whatever it is that you have in there. And every time you want to send me $1, you will tell your bank, and your bank will send it to me at my bank at HSBC. And then what happens is at my bank, there is also a ledger, okay? This ledger, I'm just going to draw it out here, okay? Here's the ledger with everybody's names on there and how much money they have. So what happens is the ledger over here that they keep track of with everybody's name on there, including yours, and how much money everybody has, they will take money off that ledger and they will forward it to HSBC, and HSBC will take that dollar that you just sent me and record it on the ledger and say that, hey, Ty just received $1 from you over here at BOFA, at Bank of America, right? And that's how it's normally done. And every time I spend that $1, then it gets deducted out of the ledger, okay? Now, this works all fine and dandy, but there are some problems with this, okay? The problem, right, is that, let me put it over here. The problem is that it requires a third party, okay? Now, I'm going to get to these other three in a minute, okay? It doesn't have to be any particular order. I'm just going to jump around, okay? So the first problem that you run into is that you can never send me the money directly to me, okay? You always have to ask your bank to send it to my bank, and then my bank will let me know. So this third party, anytime you involve a third party like Bank of America or HSBC Bank, the problem is that they're going to charge you bank fees and transaction fees, okay? And these banks do not charge cheap fees either. If you were to send me... in the U.S., if you were to send me anything like over $1,000, it would be like a $20 fee just to send me that $1,000, okay? It may not seem like a lot, but in some countries, that $25 could be somebody's month salary. So that's a very expensive way to send money. And as long as we involve a third party, you can never send me money directly, okay? The only way that you would have to send it to me directly is if you took cash and carried it to me and handed it to me physically, or the currency that you use, whether it's the yen or the euro, okay? So that's one problem, okay? The next problem with this whole entire system, that the way the banks are set up, okay, is that the banks get to print money at will, okay? They print money at will without ever having to work for it or provide value for it. And let me explain to you how it is, okay? The banks get their money from there's several ways to get it, but one of the main ways they get it is from what we call a central bank. Now, in America, okay, excuse me, at the time that I'm writing this, in America, they call it the Federal Reserve, okay? And the person that is in charge of the central bank in America right now is a guy named Ben Bernanke, and some people like to joke around and call him the Ben Bernanke, okay? And right now they are in the process of, he's leaving the central bank, the Federal Reserve, and he is going into, somebody else is going to replace him, some chick that looks, some lady named Yellen, okay? Now, what happens is, at any time, they can borrow money from the central banks at an extremely low interest rate. We're talking about like less than 1% or 1%. It's extremely low. It's lower than anything that you and I can ever get, all right? So they can loan it to these guys, and these guys will loan the money to you, or they loan it to me, so that we can go buy our homes, our cars, and do that things, right? And you know, at first, when you think about it, it's actually a good system, because you know, if you don't have no money to go and buy a house and pay for the full amount of the house, it's nice to have the banks there so that you can go and borrow it. Sorry about the allergies, guys. My nose is very itchy right now, okay? So what happens is you can borrow money from the bank and then pay for the house or the car, which is nice. However, the problem is this, is that whenever you go to work 9 to 5, right, you work your 8 hours a day and you deposit money into that bank, the bank also, BOFA and HSBC can also take that money that you deposited in there. So let's say, for example, you deposited $100 into this bank, right? Let's say that you deposited $100 into the bank. Well, they only have to keep $10 in reserve, okay? And they can take the other $90 and loan it to anybody they want. So they can loan it to other bank customers that want to buy a car, want to buy a motorcycle, or they want to buy a house or anything like that. They can take your money that you put in that bank and they can loan it to someone else. And that's where it becomes, in my opinion, unfair or unjust, because you cannot do that with your money. You cannot, if you try to loan your money, there's all kinds of loan shark laws in America and most of the developed countries where they make it illegal for you to just randomly go out there and loan people money, okay? So you cannot do that. You can get away with that in a third world country or something like that, but you're not gonna be able to get away with that in America for very long, okay? The other thing too is that because they only have to keep $10 in reserve, right? That other $90, when they, let's say that they loan it to me to go buy a car, or they loan it to another customer in the bank. When that customer takes that $90 and deposits it back into the bank, right? They keep 10% of it, and then, which is $9, okay? So they take that $90 that second customer borrows to go buy a car, a home, or whatever, right? And they'll keep $9 of it and loan out the other $81. So that cycle just continues until they have as much money as they need to do business and to loan out to people, and they collect interest on it. So this whole time they're doing all this, and keep in mind they never have to work or anything. I mean, it's all computers. It's not like somebody has to sit there and count a stack of cash or count anything like that, okay? No physical or manual labor done. Now, if they want some more money, so that's one way that they make money, okay? The other way is where they get money from the central banks. They borrow from them at extremely low interest rates and then loan it back to you, and this is just a vicious cycle, okay? I don't want to get into detail about this, but if you go to my website, underneath the video, I have a link that explains this whole process of how they print money and everything, and that should help you open your eyes to how the fiat currency system works. And this is what it's called, by the way. Fiat just simply means fake, okay? Because there's really never any money there, okay? Basically, they're loaning you $100, but there's not really $100 in the bank to back it up, okay? There's just $10 in there, and then they just keep, it's to me, it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme. It's kind of like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, is what they say, right? Now, so that's one thing, is that they can print this, and they really don't actually print like a piece of paper or a currency out. It's just a bunch of numbers in a computer. So they don't even have to spend the money to print that. And like I said, the problem with this fiat currency system that we currently use around the world is that the guys that's up here in the banks, this 1% of the people that's on Wall Street right here, we'll call these folks the 1%ers, okay? We just call it right here, the 1%. Right? They get to do this. You and I cannot. Okay? If you come from a poor background, you come from an uneducated, it doesn't matter what background you come from. You ain't going to be printing money like they do. Okay? And you can't loan out money like they do unless you're one of their family members or one of their buddies or friends or things like that. Right? So that's what I call the 1% that's on Wall Street. And that's what a lot of people that don't like the fiat currency system, that's what they call them too. Okay? So they never have to work for it. And the other thing too, like I said, is that they have a monopoly in this. Okay?